Hello and welcome to another episode of the AI Relay. I am Andrew Signori.
And I'm Jonathan Spanos. And this week we're going to talk about the threat of AI to everyone's jobs. A few weeks ago, I feel like everyone was losing their jobs. And now the past couple of days, I feel like all the CEOs are regretting and there's people getting hired back, or, they're talking about how AI isn't exactly what they thought it was going to be. We know that AI is getting better and better and better, whatever that loaded statement might mean. But what's really going on? You work in an environment where people might be under threat for real when AI gets good at their job. So what is going to happen when AI actually gets good at people's jobs?
Well, yeah, I mean, the headline is AI is getting really good at like everybody's job, right? And I think what we're seeing is a transition of like enterprises not knowing exactly how to, manage that transition of AI getting good at everybody's job. This isn't a thing where we're talking about, it's particularly good at one thing or the other. It really is coming for knowledge work. Like if you're somebody that right now, if you're someone who works, behind a computer, then it's likely that AI is getting really good at your job. And I think that the whole back and forth of companies spending too much or blowing their budgets or, firing a whole bunch of people and hiring them back. I think that's really just like a symptom of, the enterprise not knowing exactly how to manage the transition. But like, make no mistake, like AI is getting really good at your thing. I think what companies are learning is that they need to be better stewards of that ability, right? That AI
That
ability, right? So
ability, the
yeah,
AI,
the
and
idea,
that's something I think that I'd like to sort of dig in a little bit, because the AI, there's two abilities. There's the AI's model ability, right? The reasoning. Then there's the human's ability to, I guess, use AI. People say, I'm good at AI, or I use AI, or we're saying now the AI is going to get so good that it's going to do your job. But I think there's a tension that's not getting talked about right there, in that, like, AI is not going to do anything without a human asking it to do something. So
right?
when we say AI is coming for your job, it sets it up like some crazy robot's going to literally come and be sitting behind the desk in a secretary's, in an office or something.
Yeah.
Without humans, there is no productivity.
Right now, I would say that that's very true. And I'll give you an example of in my job where, you can see, both of these things sort of colliding, right?
Mhm.
I was working with a team that was deploying something in some technology in the cloud. And, we did a kind of a textbook deployment for them. We followed their documentation to a T. And yet they were still having like trouble like deploying the solution. Right. And so he called me up to be like, something's not wrong. He gave me the error that he was seeing. So, you know, being sort of like the AI enthusiast on the team, I always take like when I have to troubleshoot something, it's just like an opportunity to see let's see how the AI does, right? So I connected my agent, to that AWS account and I had it troubleshoot the problem. And man, it it discovered what the problem was. In a couple 2-3
In
minutes,
minutes.
in minutes. And when I'm telling you that, it was sort of, it's sort of a needle in a haystack. There's a lot of things that it potentially could have been, and even in getting all like the right, um, you know, stakeholders on a meeting to determine what those
Mm.
possibilities could be, takes time. And here we have like an agent that was able to go and diagnose the reason why this error was occurring. And when it came back and it said like, "Hey, the reason is that you have a policy in your organization that's blocking this from being deployed," and it was like, and it also provided its like remediation steps, which was, "Hey, you could um, the thing that's deploying the thing." could have a role on it that exempts it from the policy, right? So you could exempt that computer from the policy that's preventing it to do it, right? It's like, or you could exempt the whole account, but its recommendation was just do the role. It's safer. Uh, and so I'm like, all right, that
Right. Let's say for
sort of
like
makes
one
sense.
specific computer, like just to try to ground it a little bit outside of the enterprise level, like so, you're trying to install an application on your computer, let's say, and for some
Right, you're
reason
getting an
it's not
error.
opening.
It,
So the guy calls you and says, "Hey, how come I'm getting an error? The application won't start." And the
right,
AI takes a look, and its suggestion is, well, this particular account, this account 12345, let's just exempt 12345, and the
right.
the app will work fine.
Essentially, that was like the solution. But when I went and took a look at the policy, and it had provided me with like a policy ID. It identified like not the name of the policy, but just the ID, and says like this policy ID is blocking it. You can exempt it, and this is how you would exempt it. And it gave me instructions on how to exempt it. Just run this command, and it'll exempt from the policy. So I went to go look at that policy because I'd only had the policy ID. And when I read the description, I'm like, oh, this is a policy that's preventing a certain type of instance from being deployed that we for sure do not want to have these types of instances. So
Right,
I'm
like
like, oh,
this
wow. All right.
this
So
application, we don't want to open this application. To put it back in my metaphor,
yeah,
let's say,
like,
right?
or
Like
we don't want to run it
this
on this type of
version of this
machine.
application, right?
Right. We don't want to run it on this style of machine. Right.
Hmm.
And we
Hmm.
want to run on the new version, only the new version, because the old version's got like security vulnerabilities that, right. And
And
we don't
so
want to have security vulnerabilities.
if you had exempted 12345
We would be
ID number,
deploying
you would be
thousands of these.
opening a potential security risk would be opening through
Right.
the suggested fix to the
Sure.
problem.
Exactly. Right. So I came back to the AI that said, hey, why don't you exempt it? And I said, hey, the policy is really to prevent these types of machines from being deployed. Like, how do I make sure Citrix is just deploying the right style of machine? And it came back and was like, in typical sycophant fashion, great idea. That's actually much cleaner. And that makes sure that everything you deploy is compliant still. So like, that's a good
It
idea. Do
was the
this.
right though. It was the
Do
great idea though, right?
do this instead. Right. And when I said I want to do this instead, the instructions it gave me, perfect. Right.
Hmm.
It was just all right, you actually need to add this to the deployment template so that it only deploys this style of machine. And it was like, to do that, just run this command. So I was like, all right, boom, I run the command. And I'm like, test it. I was like on the phone with the guy and I'm like,
Hmm.
just test it. And he's like, beauty, it's working. Great. Thank you. Uh, so like
Done
what
the
was
right
amazing
way.
was the AI's ability to like identify the problem. And if allowed to, it would have resolved it, sort of, right? It would have fixed the problem that the Citrix guy was having. That problem was I can't deploy my,
Right,
Citrix workstations.
right.
And the, the, the AI would have solved it. It would have been right, but it would have been wrong, right? Because we do not want those machines to be deployed at all.
Right.
Being right was no, like fix your deployment template so you're not violating the policy.
Right, so
So
the human in the loop here, but,
right,
it wasn't the entity that knew how to identify the fix. The human in the loop here, though, identified which would have been the wrong fix,
right. It
you
was
know?
able to quickly identify the root cause of the incident, right? The root cause of the error.
Mhm.
It also identified like a legitimate fix that would have solved the problem.
The
That was
very scoped
definitely,
problem, though, right? Not the
and it was
broader
definitely the wrong
scope.
way. Like it was a outright answer, but the wrong answer, right? Because
Mhm,
we do not
mhm.
want to be
Yeah,
out of policy. We want to have this deployed within the policy.
right.
So again, it took my domain expertise to know that like, oh, we want this is the version of machine that we want, and we don't want the version that it's trying to deploy. Like that was my domain expertise, right? Guiding an agent that has gotten way better at my job than me or any of my colleagues
And that's
in its
interesting.
ability to identify the root cause.
It's interesting that you'd say got better at my job, because you really have to slice your job into a whole bunch of different layers, because the domain expertise is also what makes you good at your job. And AI doesn't get good at that job. It gets good at the tasks within the job of your domain expertise. And so like AI getting good at your job, I think maybe it's going to make people just kind of have to really break out their work and be like, what do I actually do here? And what do I need to be doing here? And what value at the core of what I do here? What is the value? So like, you know, I'm almost seeing a process like an audit. Like you can try to list everything that you do and then start checking off all the things that you can assign to AI agents to do. Whatever is left, that's what's left. Like, that's what
That's what
you
that's what
are
you do,
trying to sell. You gotta tell everyone around you, like, "This is why I'm here," right? But part of that is you can't I just said check these off to the agent, to the point
right?
of, I think, what we're talking about is, like, what does that mean? How do you know how to do that? How do you know how to manage the agents, how to give them the right kind of instructions, contexts, workflows? That isn't your job. It never was your job.
It
But
is now,
so
though.
but it is now, though.
That is the
Are,
new
like,
job, right?
people are
That's what
going
the
to
new
school
job.
not to learn that.
That is what the job is becoming, right?
A
Um,
manager of
well,
agents.
well, all right. So, like another example is, we need to like we are creating a skill for Claude Code, right? Like we want things done in a particular way. That's our taste. And the skill is going to be used to help the agent do things more to our taste, right? It has broad knowledge of the subject, but it's like, no, like I want to scope you specifically to do it this way. Um, because that's how we want it done. Like, so that it would be, the ability to like manage an agent within your domain expertise, right? And also being able to identify when the agent has, done the right thing, but the wrong thing. And
Right.
this is where like, you can't replace right now the domain expertise of the humans with nothing but AI agents because, like unless it's completely deterministic and rote whatever your job is. Like you're just like a factory worker that's doing it in front of a computer. And in
Mhm.
most cases, like that's not what knowledge work is. It, so I think that there's a right now in 2026, using AI effectively within a department requires like knowledge of how to manage AI. And that's in being a practitioner. That's in knowing what AI's capabilities are and how to like juice that lemon. And then it's also in like applying your domain expertise in your because who knows better? Like, like there could be a group of developers that are awesome at building agents, but they'll build an agent that that doesn't know how it needs to happen in your department.
Mhm.
Like there's still that human element. And that's why I say that like right now, the best employee is an employee that is AI fluent, has like a level of AI fluency and has domain knowledge. I think that person is far more valuable than no AI fluency, but like an expert domain knowledge,
And
right?
the AI fluency thing, I think, is the key to all of it. Because right now, no one's demanding anyone become AI fluent. It's just out there. If you're choosing to dig deeper than chat shirts, let's say, you become a practitioner, maybe you love it, you become a hobbyist or whatever. It's just a wild west, right? But if you're interviewing a potential new employee at the enterprise level, like, is anyone even asking about AI fluency? Is it like right now, for example, I've seen applications that point out like must know Excel, something like that, for decades. That was like a differentiator. If you didn't know Excel, like don't even apply for this job. And there's for decades been classes in universities like this is how you use Excel. Like, kids get out of school and their masters at Excel, which is now kind of irrelevant, which is sort of the point of this whole conversation. But like, at what point, or are we already there, where interviewers are kind of holding the interviewee accountable? Like, do you know how to use Claude Cowork? Do you know how to prompt an agent, whatever. Is it even in the scope of hiring new people that you need this skill?
It's starting, right? It hasn't been part of it. I can just tell you from my own experience of interviewing candidates for positions where I'm like one of 3 or 4 other, interviewees, right? And I can tell you that like all of their questions revolve around that domain specific job that they're going for. And I would be the only one asking questions around their tech stack, right? To get an idea of like, how they're using AI. Because you could ask the question of like, oh, are you using AI? But if you don't know how to, if you're not someone who is also AI fluent, right? Like, how will you be able to judge whether or not they are?
Hmm.
Uh, so you can usually tell, by like simple questions like, describe your tech stack. And if he talks to me about like, oh, I use, you know, VS Code with a Cloud Code plugin, or like I like to be able to, use Olama to switch between local models. It's like, oh, okay, like
Right.
you're speaking the language, or like I live in the terminal, like I'm completely out of the IDE now, like you know those sorts of things like is a lot to you'll be able to kind of smell it if they're just like, well, I sometimes I use Chat GPT, or sometimes I'll use Claude AI, or like my uncle gave me access to his Perplexity account. Like that's just a different understanding and a different level of AI
Absolutely.
fluency.
The future isn't going to be made of a whole bunch of people who have like, terminal based tech stacks though, right? So there's the
That's
people
what
are
you
going
say.
to, I would love that to be the case. That's the only way to hold the oligarchs back in the future. But there's I can imagine people getting excited to go on an interview and then getting blindsided in the future. Let's say, like, so what's your tech stack? Like, well, I didn't train for that. I didn't go to school for that. That's not part of what anybody told me I was supposed to know how to do. Because
Yeah,
this management of agents isn't the skill you were hired to do or are interviewing to do.
it's
So,
just
at what
it's
point and how do these gaps get filled, and from
it's
which direction?
AI
Or
fluency,
maybe all
right, is
directions.
is just not like pervasive at all layers of like the enterprise. There are some people at the absolute top of the stack that are very AI fluent. And there are people like, the tech workers that you would expect would be like all over a new technology that like who feel like their cup is full.
Hmm.
I know this thing. This is what I know. I'm awesome at knowing this thing. And I do not feel like learning this whole other
Yeah.
thing. There's a lot of that, right?
I think it's easy
So
to empathize with that. It's easy to empathize with that. You've been training, been working hard to do what you do, and
yeah,
now you're supposed to become a completely different kind of employee, a manager. Like, people, there are plenty of people I would imagine I can identify with it. Like, don't like to manage people. Like, just give me a job, leave me alone. But now you're telling me I got to like spread my brain across 5 different agents, and they're going to be doing different things, and I have to be reviewing
yeah,
work. Like, I don't want to
for
review
sure.
work. But that
I
is
think
that.
that there is going to be, I think that time is coming really, really soon, where there's an expectation that at every layer you're able to generate code, right? That
Mhm.
doesn't mean that like you need to be a software developer. You just need to be able to manage agents in order to generate code to, to make solutions,
You could call
right?
that almost a baseline fluency, let's say,
Well, like
for the
with
sake
that
for the sake of the
baseline fluency, that
conversation.
goes along with like all that other stuff that you see with like the SaaSPocalypse or whatever, right? The AI
Mhm,
fluency comes with like, oh, you know what? We don't need to buy that module. We could just like build it ourselves now.
mhm.
And that's why you're seeing things like, like SaaS organizations, like they're not going to
Yeah.
zero. Like they're not, this is the other thing. It's like, it doesn't mean that they go to zero, but what it means is that like, like you can no longer trade at like the multiples that you were trading at, right? Because your
Yes.
growth model is now completely different. Like your growth is going to stall because all of a sudden all your customers are able to like write their own solutions.
When there's enough to bring it back to the fluency and to the losing my job to AI kind of thing, there's still quite a bit of learning curve for all of us to see that, like, the simple statement of the AI is going to take my job, if you zoom in on it, it can't take your job, but this is the point of what we're talking about today. But it's going to force you to shift what your job is so that you don't lose your job to someone who is better at managing agents. So it's interesting that you said, like, one litmus test, let's say, is can you generate code? But is the reverse question asked? In other words, like if managers need to in the future be able to generate code,
Right.
and they were trained to manage all sorts of departments and people and groups and teams.
Right.
What about the reverse? The engineer who like never wanted to be a manager, are they now going to be required to learn to manage? Because
Manage,
they'd be
well,
like, but
they're
I didn't want to do that.
sort
Not
of
manage people, but
manage
manage all these
agents.
agents, right? So
It
there's a
doesn't
gap
matter what
there.
you it's like it doesn't matter what you want. It matters, like, what matters is, like, I like, what it's going to be. Like, living in the reality of, like, this is the new job. It's going to be the same way that, like, with the advent of personal computers, there were people, like, it's like, what knowledge worker doesn't use a computer? There was a time when,
Hmm.
like, accountants, they had, these giant ledger books, and they would do
Yeah.
accounting in these giant ledger books. And, eventually they all started using QuickBooks or the equivalent of QuickBooks.
Everyone is going to be using AI to some capacity, but the gap is still very real because it is still such really early days that even just now we just said, oh, you're going to have to learn how to manage agents. Let's try to ground that a little bit more. In this case, when I say an agent, I essentially mean, like, you could just imagine having like 5 chat GPT windows open at once. Each one of them have a specific set of instructions of what they're working on, and you're chatting with them to get them to do the specific tasks that they're working on, but they're going to be doing it simultaneously, and they're going to be giving you
Yeah.
output, and you're going to have to be keeping an eye on this output. That's as
But
complicated as
managing
I'm
agents
saying it.
also means, like, providing it, like, the requisite context to do a great job.
That's the fluency of it.
Well, I mean, it's
That's
also
the
like
fluency of it.
you must know that there is such a thing as an MCP, or there's such a
Yeah.
thing as a skill, so that you would know to be like, "Oh, I wish I had an MC I need an MCP for that. Like, I need to
Mhm.
connect to that
Mhm.
service."
Mhm.
Right? So how
Mhm.
am I gonna connect to that service? I'm gonna, or like, there's a CLI for that. Let me make a skill, right, for the CLI. Like, if you have a CLI, you should have a skill. And then it's a matter of, like, like, everybody has access to, say, Claude at the office. Not everybody knows how to connect Claude to their AWS account and have it troubleshoot the
I
the
think that
account,
that's
right?
where
It's like
at that
you
level,
need to know how to, like,
but
manage
don't
your
you
agent, Claude being the agent. Like, how do I get it so that it can do that thing? You
I
have to
feel like
know how.
at that tier,
Yeah.
Anthropic and OpenAI are going to solve that for people with these connectors. Right at this point, right? They're going to get better and better. Right now, you can pretty much just go click M365. It connects all by itself and can go read your email. It can only
Ye
read your email though, but and for Claude's instance, I'm saying that the solutions are coming down the line
So,
one
right,
after
okay,
another
so
to make it click
good
and
example,
go.
right? There's an MCP, it does some of the things, and right? But I don't need it to do some of the things, I need it to do all of the things. The
Mhm.
API allows you to do all of the things, so build your own MCP.
Yeah. Yeah, that you're 100% in the fluency layer there,
You
and
just
that's the
need to
gap, though.
know that, like, anybody can build an MCP as long as you have the API documentation and access to the API. That's all it is, right? So it's like, if there is
There's
no
a
ed
self-education that has to go along with this, and that takes time, right? You love it, so you've put the time in to know
yeah, but
what
it's
you're talking
only
about
the
right now.
knowledge to know that, like, your AI agent can do this for you. You don't need to know how to build an MCP server. You just
No,
need
you
to know
don't.
that it's no big thing, and, like, you can just tell your agent to do it, and it can do it for you. Like, and, like, you know, that's it. You just need to know,
There's just
you don't
I
need to
can
know how to
imagine.
build an MCP. So I don't know how to write Python in
No,
fast MCP and build I have no idea. I just know that my agent, and, like, when my agent builds it and I see it running in a terminal window, I see it's running fast MCP. I'm like, oh, it's using, like, fast MCP software to, like, build an MCP for this service that I have. Cool.
there's going to be so much friction to this, right? Because there's a difference here. let's say we're talking about an independent contractor, like, a builder or a plumber or like guy who lays concrete, that kind of hands-on moving atoms kind of industry, right?
Right.
Their AI, AI literacy and fluency is this superpower. It's this, you're going to do things you just never would have done, whether it's like have software as a service grade, software on your phone because you built it yourself, or marketing things you never would have paid for, or whatever. That's like, oh my God, it's going to make those people's jobs so much better. But the flip side in the enterprise is like, you're going to have to become a different employee. Like you don't get to be the plumber anymore, right? The plumber just gets to be this supercharged plumber. But like, I don't know who, let's say the developer or someone on one of your teams is like, you had this job, you were the plumber, but now you don't get to be the plumber. Sorry, you have to manage a whole bunch of tiny
Yeah,
plumbers. That's
jobs
your
are
job
changing.
now. And you're like, but I
Yes.
didn't, I didn't want to do that. I like plumbing and I don't want to manage plumbers. And
Yeah.
it's kind of
It's
like we're
you
just
gotta
saying, like,
adapt.
sorry, it's gonna
Yeah.
happen. Like, if you want to keep working in that job, you might have to learn how to be a manager. And isn't there a funny irony there, right? Where many of the headlines are the managerial classes are going to go
Right.
first.
Right.
Well, they might be in the best position to adapt if they just learn how to code a little bit
I'm
to
sure
be the
like
best managers of AI because their actual training is orchestrating. They are the orchestrating agent themselves who manages sub agents with teams, and they're going out and delegating and waiting for
right.
the output to
Like,
come
I'm
back. Like,
sure there were like, in like 1915, there were dudes that managed like, large carriages with like, you know, 5, 10 horses
yeah,
pulling
right.
massive, heavy loads of things that were just like, I'm not, I'm not doing the car thing. Like
Mm,
my thing is
hmm,
like,
hmm.
I take care of horses.
Right,
Like that's completely different from
right.
like being a mechanic. Like I'm just going to do the horse thing. I'm sure
That's
they're
right.
like they've held on for a while and they might have been able to finish their career, but like their business would have diminished massively. So just people who are like, I don't know, I like horses. I like the sound of the click clack when it comes to like pick up they would have to be something like that.
Your metaphor is really quite spot on because it's like if you to go back a little bit before, I'm saying check off all the things that you really don't need to do and whatever's left. That like the actual objective of that person with the 12 horse team was to move the heavy stuff. It wasn't to move the 12-horse team. And
Right.
if at the end of the day someone says, "Hey, you now need to move it with this internal combustion truck," and the person has the freedom of choice, I hope, to say like, "What I actually love is the clickety clack," and it's like, dude, go to Central Park and get a wagon
Yeah.
then,
Like I
right?
hope there's
Because
enough people that also like
right, like
clickety clack.
follow what you want, identify the value of who you believe you are, right? In this spiritual kind of way, like get rid of all the menial tasks that were always bolted on to your job because no one else would pay more to do it because that wasn't
Yeah.
really
But
value.
there are the
That's
people
just
that,
like
like you
heap it
said, that
onto that person.
there are the truck drivers, right? That like it's not moving goods that they love. It's
Right,
driving.
right.
You know what I mean?
Right, right. I can imagine.
It's
I'm
like
sure that's true. I'm sure that's true. And if you
right.
tell them,
And
hey, there's a robot truck that's going to pull all these things now, their heart's not broken because they don't get to move objects. It's that they don't get to
developers,
drive.
right? Like for a developer, if you think about what is the job, it's like to generate software,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
It's
Right.
not to code. That
Well,
is how you had to do it before, right?
that's
The
right.
job
Right.
of a developer was to sit there and like type out code. And it's like, that's quickly becoming not the job of a developer. But there are some people that are just like, I don't want AI to like write my code. I want to write the code. It's like, yeah, but that's like the guy that wants to like use horses to pull the
Yeah.
truckload.
Or
You know,
or an actual historical example, right? Wasn't the word calculator at first it
it's a
was
human being.
referring
It was
to
a
the
job.
humans, right? There was the
Yes,
job is to be the calculator.
computer.
I'm a calculator. The
Someone had a
literal
job as
calculator comes in, or computer.
like computer. The job was computer, but
Right.
human. You were a human computer. And
Right.
and it's like, yeah,
So
how many companies that continued to use humans as their computers were able to compete with companies that decided to actually use computers? Nobody really wants a human. They just want compute. right? They don't
Right.
want it
Is
done by a
what is the actual objective of the
right.
task you've been
It's
assigned to do?
right,
It wasn't to make the numbers look pretty in the ledger. It was to whatever the equal number
right,
was, right? I need the total at the end of the column.
right. You know,
And the calculator came along, and it's like someone could say, but I love doing this math by long division, because some people it's kind of like a
and
puzzle.
there will be people that will continue to code forever, and
Hmm.
some people that'll buy it, right?
Hmm.
You
Hmm.
know, craft coding. You know what I mean? Like, and they'll
And to
sell it on Etsy.
right,
You
craft
know, and I
coding,
mean, it'd be like human
craft
made
coding.
apps, like wasn't no AI touched, and like this will be
That's
a
going to
thing,
be a
and there'll be
thing.
some people that buy it because like they're like, yeah, man, I'm into the human
You
made
heard it
stuff,
here first, folks. The 3 people who made it this far into the thing.
right? Craft coding,
Craft coding will be a thing. It probably will. It most definitely will be a thing, because people love to knit still, and it's beautiful when they do it by hand. People love to put mosaics together by hand.
right? Just
Puzzles.
knowing,
I just bought someone a 500-piece puzzle. They like wanted it. That you want a
right,
500-piece puzzle? Sure. It's a bunch of flowers with a bird on it. What are you going to do
right,
with it when you're done? Nothing. But I love puzzles too. If I saw a jigsaw puzzle, I start
right,
going, it's a gravity. You got to go and start putting the puzzle together, right? So people are definitely going to keep doing that. But the job that the AI came and took from you wasn't what you love about yourself and your job.
right,
If it was, then there may have been a secret conflict all along in your
listen,
career, because the objective is to move the stuff. The objective is to create the code. The objective is to have that total or subtotal at the end of the column and row. Like,
right,
figuring out how to best become the manager of technology that creates the outcomes that you have already always been assigned to create. This is not new, but what's changing is the AI is coming for how you achieve the outcomes.
right,
If you just wait for AI to come take your job, if we've said this kind of before, it's
right,
actually the person who does that better is going to come take your job,
right. The person who
not an
uses
invisible
in
AI
that job.
machine.
Right. The person who's better at managing AI in that job is going to do better than just you doing that job.
Now, see, the
Right.
headlines paint it as this ethereal, invisible thing is going to just magically do all of this work, and
Well,
16,000 people are unnecessary. And
because
it's
I
like,
think
it's just
there's,
it's a fundamental gap in how AI works, how it functions.
yes, but I also think too that like people are fixated on like the obvious like endpoint of where this ends up without focusing on like the transition of like, well, where do you need to be right now in order to like be a valuable employee? And it's when we think about where is it going in 5 years or 7 years, like the inevitability of like AI taking jobs, like it's like the only people that are, for sure it's going to take like eventually, I don't know what the timeline is,
Right.
5 years or 7 years, like, it'll take that long, for even if it's capable of doing it today, it'll take that long to like transition the economy, like, and these businesses to these AI run businesses. And that's why right now, the most valuable person is the person with the domain knowledge and like an expertise in using AI.
Yeah.
That person right now is more valuable
And
than
they're
the absolute expert with no
right.
with no AI ability. And eventually it will be something different. It will be just like, yeah, maybe like in 5 years, it'll be like, yeah, well, I'm a total expert at both my domain and AI, and yet AI is now better than me. We're not there yet, you know. So
I think, again, Excel is perfect, like a good
right,
example. It helps me understand it. Like, there will be a time where you will be hired for whatever domain you're getting hired for, and on the application, it's going to ask, like, what is your AI fluency or something, whatever the wording
right,
is going to be, but it's going to be directly like requisite. If you don't
yeah,
know how to do this, don't
that's
apply
going to
for this
be
job.
very, very soon, if
Hmm.
not already happening.
And to
Uh,
point it to pin it down, though, what it is a good manager of multiple agents running tasks. That's
yeah,
what being good at AI is. When we see it on the application in the future, that's what they're going to mean. Not, do you search well, or do you have it on your phone? Like,
but
do you
you know,
understand what it is to have multiple agents running multiple workflows?
yeah, but on the flip side of that, what is required on the other end of that conversation is someone with AI fluency that can understand whether or not
Mm.
this person
To
has
ask
AI
the
fluency
question
or not,
even.
right?
Right.
To
And
ask
so
the
that
question and then understand whether or not the answer they're
mhm.
getting is, the right answer, right? So, and that's why like this transition is slow, even though like for people
Mm.
that are in it, it's obvious, right? It's like, no, it's obvious. Like everybody needs to be good at AI in their job, right? And it's like we should be hiring people that like are good at their job and at AI. And that should be the type of person that we're looking for rather than
That
just
that is
have a
the
job requisition. Right now, the job req is pretty much just, do you have this experience with this
mm,
domain?
domain.
Right.
Because no people generally don't say like, like if you go for to get a job as like a carpenter, they might say you need your own tools, but they're not going to say like, so what, what kind of jig do you use when you make this joint? Like, who cares? I just need you to make sure that you do. I'm not going to ask for the specific tools you use, right? So you go for
Well,
an
okay,
interview on
but
something,
here's
they're not
the
going to
flip
say,
side, right? Let's
but in a
say it's
way
like
they do. When they require Excel knowledge, they're saying you better have that in your toolkit,
it's
or else don't come.
1972, okay, and the power tool has been invented. And people are going from using hammers and nails to like power tools and air guns. If you were hiring a carpenter, you're definitely going to be like, hey, especially if these are new things and you
Yeah.
have them, you're going to be like, yo, you
Hmm.
have experience using like
Hmm.
nail guns or like power tools? And if you're like, no, 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 I am a hammer guy. I just use a hammer. I only use a hammer. No, no air gun. You're going to be like, oh, okay. Next.
That's a pretty good
Right.
metaphor too, Andrew, right there, because the tool, in a way, is something you need to have a technique for how it works. If it's a hammer or if it's a circular saw, or let's put
You
it in
don't want
saw
people cutting off their
terms, right?
fingers either,
If you have like a
like,
handsaw, there's a particular technique for handsaws, and there's a different
yeah,
technique for a circular saw. I mean, they're both going to cut wood. So if you're really good at the handsaw all these years, you don't want to learn a new skill, which is managing another tool. You need to learn how
right,
to manage this tool so you don't cut your hand
right.
off. And
It's like,
trust me, you're
right.
going to want to learn to manage this tool because it's going to make your job
Yeah,
easier,
but people
actually
are
more
getting
enjoyable
hung
without.
up on the fact that like no one's gonna know how to use a handsaw anymore. And it's like, don't worry about it. Right. You know what? Like, don't worry about it.
Right. We'll have our craft code. It'll be fine. I still
It
have handsaws. You know what I
right.
mean? Like they exist. You can go buy
But
new
I wouldn't
ones.
encourage a commercial builder to have all of his builders using handsaws.
No,
Right.
but you will find a handsaw on the job site somewhere
Okay.
because you might
Because they could be
sometimes
useful.
need a handsaw,
Right.
right? Right. But
Again, but
I think it's all a pretty good metaphor. Like it's never going to go away, but it's definitely changing. And you've been
you gotta learn
managing
how to use the new
tools all along in a way, if you want to metaphorize the word tool, right? Like whatever manual way you've been doing this list of menial tasks, you've been employing tools to do them, right? You're not telepathic. So now it's just
but
learn a
like
new tool, learn how to manage a new tool to get those same outcomes. Or
what is
in this case,
crazy is
actually
that
probably
all
better
at the
outcomes.
same time, right? Everybody's area of domain expertise all got power tools
Hmm.
all at the same time. And like not everybody realizes that like they even that anything has changed or they think it's happening somewhere else. And the truth is, it's like everybody needs to realize that
Right.
like power tools have been invented in your area, and it's like if you do not learn how to use the power tools, you will be the carpenter applying for the job, going like, no, no, no,
Hmm.
I use the
Hmm.
handsaw. I'm only going
Hmm.
to use the handsaw. That's how I learned how to do it. I use handsaws only, and they're like, well, that's not going to be fast enough for us. We need you to be that good with the circular saw.
Hmm. Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
I
Or
wonder,
just don't apply for the job. Go somewhere where
right,
your
right, and
handsaws
go,
are going to go
right,
do crafted awesome things. Go
right.
make handcrafted tables and stuff.
And I hope, right, that you can make a living doing that.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
find your niche and whatever. Like the hopefully this is has a light at the end of the tunnel in that it is democratizing and people will be able to find themselves more genuinely and be able to commit to themselves without having to feel like, well, I got to get this job over here that I don't really like to do,
Well,
but I'm going to have to do it for 30 years or something. Is it going to
should stuff
unlock
get
that? In a
real?
way, it might force some people to come to terms with like, what is my real value in this job, in this career? But there is one. I'm not saying that they're going to find zero. They're just going to
Like
find that like all these little things I've had to do all these years, they were really just kind of busy work. The real reason I'm here is this core, and at this point, this domain expertise as well.
Yeah. All right. Well, why don't we wrap it at that?
Yeah, we could
We,
wrap it up at that. I think, again, totally blew it by saying anything in the beginning about like, share, and subscribe, and that we're on Spotify and that
right.
we're
Like
on
we
Apple
know the analytics. No one
podcasts.
hears us is asked to like or subscribe. So I mean, we're gonna say it again, but
We'll
it's
say it
like I
again,
know that
and
about 3% of you, and I'm
it's so funny.
like
I
looking at
have
our
to, you know what I have to
subscriber
do?
count. You're probably
I'm being a
listening.
bad AI practitioner by not putting that in the header of like the template of the show notes, so that I will remember, like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to say that right now. Weeks have
All
gone
right.
by, and I'm not keeping up with my own fluency there.
All right. Well, with that,
It's an
we're
easy
gonna do better
fix.
next week, and we'll
With
do that.
that, the message is being good at AI means something. Think about what it means. It's not just having ChatGPT answer questions. All
Yes. All right, dude.
right,
Till
guys.
next week.
See you next week.
Later.